Hello, and welcome to the Santaland podcast. I created it just for you. I'm your host, Tony Felice. In each episode, I'll read to you for 10 minutes, and then we'll talk about what we just heard. Like the cricket in my story, I'll guide you through a grown-up fairy tale, one that explores ideas of existence, identity, and the soul's journey through trauma, and the transformative power of love. By the end, you'll have heard my whole story, a sneak peek into the creative process of bringing a book to life. Maybe we'll read other books together. But for now, follow the wise cricket and discover the Santaland within yourself, a place of hope, connection, and peace that's already inside of you. This podcast is especially made for those like me who feel a little different and maybe talk about math at weddings or philosophy at funerals. And like me, maybe you have a loving husband, or a wife, or somebody else that loves you. If not, we're here to love you, because you're in good company, my dear friends, here in Santaland. Thank you for joining me on the Santaland podcast. We are at chapter 22, entitled, She Had the Kind of Face That Invited Conversations About the Weather. David meandered his way along the shoreline and picked up the things that thoughtless people leave behind. He made his way closer to the shoreline, but caught a glint of sun on something, so he walked towards it. "You can feel the ocean today, boy. You can really feel it. Look at the waves." Brahms responded with a huff. "Ugh, we just had a beach cleanup yesterday," he muttered, switching back to cursing the trash. Like all people, David could be two things at once. Using his picker, he put the trash in the bucket. "Sorting it, that's all I'm doing. Sorting all the matter out of place and putting it where it belongs." A group of tourists walked past him and he couldn't stop himself. "We had a beach cleanup yesterday, and look at all this stuff. It's back." "People leave their shit everywhere, don't they?" said a jogger passing by. David gave a curdled smile. He was happy to hide behind sunglasses. "Artifacts. They're just artifacts, not trash, Brammy. Just have to get it to the right place, that's all. I mean, if we screw up humanity, at least they'll find our landfills and they'll know we existed because everything's going to be in one damn pile," he thought. Brahms was more interested in peeing on seaweed than paying attention to David's rational philosophy. David trudged across the powdery sand and looked around, thinking, Tom always said that he's never offended by nature, but people, that's another story. David could understand why, but he held out hope for a better world. He turned his face skyward in gratitude for his life, the sea, Tom, and his home. He looked at the vast expanse of blue and let the wind fall all over him. Bits of sand caused stings, but he didn't care. It was magic. Seabirds flew overhead, arguing about direction. The wind whipped through his hair and across his eyebrows. 5 pelicans in a V-shape above headed out to sea. "Coming here feels like a friend putting your arm around your shoulder," he thought to himself. David sat on an eroded bluff. He ran his fingers through the sand, digging them down deep to where he could feel moisture. They came up wet and covered in tiny universes of glass, silica, and shell. He looked at them, and then brushed it off, looking out to sea. An island far off in the distance carried an unknown name. He wondered, who lives there, and why, on a postage stamp in the water. Views must be amazing, though. He looked to his right and smirked at half-naked visitors lying in the 50-degree sun. A pair of older hippies in macrame and spandex. He laughed. More misfits, he chuckled. The waves were big, turbulent. Winter waves with a lot of eroding to do. They were busy doing their wave thing and beating up the shore with roar after roar, depositing, taking, depositing, taking. People in the distance looked like periods, dotting the space for emphasis. A stern, unattractive person went by. Seemed like a Karen, he thought. She had the kind of face that invited conversations about the weather, David said out loud, mimicking Tom's voice perfectly. That's a pretty good one. I'll have to admit that. I'll give it to Tom later. Many of David's sentences were in Tom's books. He refused credit when Tom offered. "You're the writer, Tom, but I like helping," said in a tone that closed the discussion. But Tom gave David credit anyway, because of his answer, and because of the gesture, and because David didn't need it. David was well known for his own accomplishments, beautiful buildings and gardens. So finding sentences and sharing them was a game for them both. To collect, sort through, and share, sometimes at dinner, sometimes in the middle of a kiss, and sometimes, years later, on a found piece of lost paper. Tom picked over David's offerings as gleefully as that seagull over there right now, picking apart a delicious meal of God knows what, David thought. He smiled. Sometimes they made each other laugh. Sometimes a sentence would be profound, the entendre hitting its mark, or lofty and dreamlike, or wistful and nostalgic. Over time, their wordplay became a sort of intellectual foreplay. Candice seemed like an odd name for a woman reputed to have killed her husband with a ball-peen hammer. That sentence started the beginning of Tom's second novel. It came out of nowhere, in the pool, after a few Mai Tais. In many ways, David felt like a creation of Tom, inasmuch as Tom was of him. Frankensteinian, in fact. Both had wounds the other stitched together with words, sentences, and deeds. He stood and walked further down the shoreline. He felt Brahms lope along at an altered pace, not straining or looking or distracted, but just slow and listing across the sand dune, careful to be present, not to invade David's thoughts. David noticed a rowdy football game in progress and looked for a quiet opening through which he could pass between both. On purpose. He smiled, guiltily for looking too closely at the glistening, beautiful male bodies, perfecting their masculine achievements in the grasp of the ball, muscles showing off. The moment was interrupted by more garbage. He even noticed the young man ran among bits of it, seemingly immune to the eyesore. "Can't have nice things sometimes. This shit needs sorting," he thought. Tom sorted his novels into two categories: okay and misfit toy. Ghastly sentences, he'd say. I wish I could go back in time and rewrite some of them. Misplaced hyperbole, the black hole of adjectives, pedantic phrases. Poor Tom, still too critical of himself. Okay. So, in this chapter, what do we learn? It's a typical day, really, for David. Going across the sand with the dog, people out, some people wearing next to nothing in 50-degree weather. That is a friend of ours, Kat. She was pregnant. She does have a toddler named Emma that we absolutely adore. Kat is anxiously awaiting the publishing of this book so she can share it with her kids. And hopefully the kids will be still toddlers when this comes out. But we learn more about David as he's walking across the sand, and little moments. This chapter is meant to reinforce the idea that David sorts things together. He sorts things, and he is someone that can be counted on, and someone we would all be lucky to have. So thank you so much for turning into this episode. Not much really to talk about that. It's just sort of moving the plot forward, and looking forward to having you join me at the next episode. Thank you so much for being part of Santaland. I really appreciate it.